I want to start with asking the very basic and the first question that, can you just take us through your career graph and how you have worked in different industries and with different people, and how did you manage to, build a balance in your commitments? Because all of us, especially the young blood in the different industries, we have our full-time commitments, we have our passion projects, and even all of us are very, very uh, positive towards fulfilling all our commitments. There are a lot of limitations that we face, starting from time management to distractions like social media and whatnot. So if you can tell us, like, take us through your career graph, and then how are you managing your various commitments at once?
Sure. So thanks, Ankita, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I love this topic, which is why I decided that if I have to talk about stuff, I'm going to talk about balancing all the commitments. And interestingly, a lot of times young girls have walked up to me and said, you make everything seem like breeze, and how do you do it? And I tell them, don't go by what you see. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a working woman, I've done whatever I've done in my career. So the juggle is real. The struggle is real and the juggle is real,
Juggle is real, yeah.
So it's a fact. And it's just that some of us learn to juggle better, and others are, practicing. So it's just that. And so let me just talk to you about the various things I've tried to do. And some of my assignments were definitely those where you can't really say whether it's work or it's life, or, how do you balance the two? Like I started my career with the Indian Army, as and I left after 10 years. And in those 10 years also, I, as a woman officer, and I was from one of the early batches. So the army was also not really used to seeing women in uniform. So we are from that era, 96 commission. And I was a young girl, 22 years old, and, wanted to prove to the world that, I'm somebody who's going to make all the possible difference, and, everything like that. Yes, I had the wonderful opportunity of being in Ladakh during the Kargil war. So I was present in Kargil, doing my logistics work also. So all of that also added to the experiences that I carry and helped me become the person I am. Also taught me to sort of prioritize on what's meaningful and what's not. When you are so close to life and death, and in the commitment and the service towards the nation, that's the time you realize that life is short. And in those split seconds, then you see an artillery shell just crossing you and going away and landing about 150, 200 meters away. You realize how close you were to not being there. So that's the time you realize that life is very precious, and you pray to God and say, I'm going to make all the possible difference to the world, to myself. Just see that I'm safe, and I was very young. So I think that's something that's very close to my heart. And it did help shape and make me who I am today. Yes, while I was with the army, I had my 2 children also. So besides being a woman in uniform in a very male-dominated organization and serving in places like Ladakh during the war, Rajasthan borders, deserts, and Bhutan, Nepal border, pardon me, towards Bagdogra. So I've done a lot of these very, very geographically challenging positions and places where typically you don't find, you didn't find women in uniform those days. Now it's a different deal in 26 years, but then those days we were all experimental batches. They were wondering whether girls can do this or not. So it's not just, Lieutenant Vandana that you're representing. You're the voice and face of the women. So everything you do, you are always wanting to keep up the image of women in uniform, that
you always have a sense of responsibility as well, because you're representing women.
Yeah. And anything that doesn't go well probably gets those judgment that probably girls can't do this, or these are the issues with them. And I'd not say that it's in male dominated organizations. I think generally also, I mean, why do we have so many conversations in corporates also about gender parity and, you know, diversity ratios and everything? It's because I think it's still very skewed world over. In developed countries, third world, we know how it is. So, you know, the journey has been enriching, but it has been all over, you know, trying to prove yourself and stuff like that. So while I guess, you know, I did well for myself. I was very happy that I contributed in the best of possible manner, and people still remember me for my contribution. So that means a lot.
Right.
Apart from that, when I had my babies, I was in places where you don't have crashes, you don't have support systems, and you possibly travel at 24-hour notice to far-flung areas, and you may not have those days there were no flights also. There were, you know, Indian Airlines flying from big cities to big cities, not in places where I used to be. So it's several hours of journey, finding the nearest railway station and, you know, all of that. So there was too much that you had to plan. However, being in it so close and always wondering how to solve it actually makes you better at problem solving. So I guess I learned to anticipate my challenges, and I started to work towards them. And I always ensured that there was, you know, some sort of backup if I had to move quickly in, say, 24 hours. And sometime when there was no help, my children actually came with me for my duties late in the night or wherever I had to go, because I mean, you cannot pass it on to somebody. That wouldn't be the right thing to do. Right. And you want to look after your kids, the kids could come. So that's how I used to manage in those days. And you know, I mean, there were good people, kind people, and out of compassion, a lot of times people used to say, look, you're from short service commission, because women used to be in short service commission. Only permanent commission has been announced recently, and, you know, about a few weeks back it was in news, which is after 26 years. You know, they used to tell me that you're not going to be the chief, yours is a contract which will get over. Why do you stay in our office for so long? Go home, yeah, just look after your kids. But I used to always say that, you know, if I go away, you are the one who's going to judge me and say, you know, we have to do her work because she's a mom and she's gone home.
Yeah.
So, I always said that I will do what is my task, and I don't want it to be delegated or passed on to someone because I'm a woman. So those were some of the things that happened while I was with the forces.
Right.
I moved out consciously. I wanted to pursue a career in the corporates. Interesting transition again for somebody like me who knew how to throw grenades, shoot with the LMGs and carbon machine guns and pistols, but didn't know how to start a computer. So I I've come a long way. Right. From then to now, you know, being in the entrepreneurial world as a digital nomad and all of that we talk about, it's been a very, very interesting journey.
Right.
And so I landed in Bangalore again. This was a crazy world with, you know, too many people, too much traffic, and I used to be in places like Ladakh and Bikaner in Rajasthan and all of that. So imagine the chaos that I see, and suddenly, you know, you're like, oh, where have I landed myself, you know? But then you learn, you try and understand the ways of the cities and the work culture and an IT organization. And then I moved on to several interesting assignments in HR and operations, you know, education, retail, e-commerce. I joined Myntra in 2012. So from there, my startup journey started. Right. And while I had also worked with larger companies like, you know, Wipro and GMR and TNT, which is a Dutch MNC, and, you know, stuff like that, I realized that I was very excited being with startups. When Myntra happened to me, I realized that it's a lot like me, you know, because there's so much happening.
Absolutely.
You want to be in the middle of action. You want to sort of see that growth and excitement and think ahead of what's going to happen and all of that. So I was like, okay, now this suits just fine for me, and maybe this is what I enjoy most. And I was the head of HR for supply chain, which is the logistics and warehousing organization. So it actually grew from, say, about 150, 200 people to 7,000 by the time the acquisition by Flipkart happened, with it, which was 2 years. So you can imagine the growth in 2 years that we saw. And then I moved on to a culture role within Myntra. So a lot of interesting work, a lot of exciting work. Then I was CHRO for Holiday IQ, which later got acquired by Last Minute. So a lot of amazing work, a lot of excitement. And that's when I started to sort of think of having my own practice. I wanted to do something of my own. And I decided to start HR consulting of my own about 3 years back. And recently I've co-founded Stree, which again is close to my heart because it's a women entrepreneurship centric setup that we started, and that within this new normal lockdowns.
Right.
So a lot of exciting work, and like I said, the juggle is real, the struggle is real, everything that happened, and amidst all that, setting up a new company and starting something of that nature was exciting but very chaotic too. So
right.
So yeah, lots has happened. It's been fun. I won't say that it's always been rosy and beautiful. There have been bad days, but then you just learn how to manage the bad days better with time. And I guess, if you've been through a war, nothing else can match it. So
yeah.
Everything is fine.
Right. So like such a beautiful transition from military to Myntra. I mean, I like there are two poles apart things like in my head. So it's amazing that you could manage the transition with such ease. So I'm sure that when you are in the military or when you are working with larger companies, the parameters of which from which you manage or determine that this is been a successful campaign or this has been a successful venture, then we could actually complete it, is very different from how you look at it in the military and how you look at it in a startup culture. But I'm sure the base values of you remain the same, right? So if I have to ask you that, what does success mean to you in terms of, commitments, and how would you reply to that?
Lovely question. And I think this again is a very thought-provoking question, because I think everybody chases success. Everybody wants to be successful, but what does success mean? I guess it means different things to different people, right? What my definition of success today is may not be necessarily the same for you or people watching and listening to us today. My children and family world over, I guess success is different. And when I talk only about myself, I guess my own definition of success has been changing. Right? Like when I was a kid, say when I was 12, for me success was coming first and winning all the prizes. So that was very important, and I did, and I pursued everything I could, and I was very happy and successful. Say at 16, my aspiration was to become a school captain. So I did that too. I was very happy, very successful. By 22, I wanted to join army. That also happened. I thought I was very successful. By 32, the army career, because it was short service, it was getting over. There was no commission beyond 10 years. I didn't know what to do. So you start thinking, what do I do now? So I wanted to transition to a corporate career. That also happened. I thought I was very successful. At 42, I started, because by now I had seen the whole range of success. And I guess it's the magical 40, as they say, that's the midlife crisis perhaps. You start looking back at everything and saying, what does success mean to me? What do I actually think I have done that has impacted people? What is my purpose? Why have I been put on this planet? And, the time is short. You start getting into that frame of mind where you say, I have limited strong years ahead of me, and what impact can I make?
Correct.
So I guess that magical transition happened somewhere, a couple of years back, which is when I decided that just doing jobs is not the only thing I want to do. While you can make a lot of impact, and I did wherever I was, I did the, whatever was the best thing as per my, capability or what allowed me. However, I wanted to do a lot more, and which is when I decided to sort of, be an influencer, a motivational speaker, run mentoring sessions, become an entrepreneur. So my definition of success has also changed.
Right.
And I guess, I think right now, today, if we talk about the new normal, we forget about all of that. What is success for anybody in new normal? I think if we are safe, if there's a roof on our heads, if we have food on the table, if our near and dear ones are safe and around us, I guess that's success. Nothing else matters, truly. And I'm making this comparison because I have been through this when I had that artillery shell fly over my head. You know, that's the exact feeling I had, that you're so close to something fatal, you don't know when and how it can hit anybody. So having that gratitude for life and knowing that you're safe and there is the Almighty who's looking after you and the universe is providing for you, I think that's success. Right?
Right.
So philosophical, but I guess.
No, absolutely. Even Mr. Ratan Tata mentioned that this year is only for survival. Like if you are able to survive this year, then you are a success.
True.
Right? Very true. Yeah. So now when we talk about balancing our commitments, I'm sure like when we are multitasking, all of us have certain strategies or certain planners that we take into consideration, and that is the way we kind of grow and try to manage all the commitments that we have. So during your different ventures, what was your way of, or what are the strategies that you implemented to kind of make sure that whatever commitments you had, you could fulfill them and achieve success in that as well? So what are the strategies, if you can just tell us that?
Okay. So I guess it's not rocket science. I guess it's the same thing that every single person who talks about effective management and work-life balance talks about. But some things work better for somebody and some things don't. So one has to pick the tools that work best for you. Luckily for me, because I come from an armed forces background, my father was also in the Air Force. So we were brought up as children in a household where being on time was extremely important. Whatever you have committed had to happen. You couldn't back out by, making excuses. So certain basics like being on time, being ethical, managing a structured routine, all that came as a child itself. And then I joined Army, where, we used to measure time in seconds and minutes, not hours. So, I was that finicky at one point in time. If somebody didn't land for meetings on time, it used to upset me. Because I always said that I respect your time, you need to respect mine. So many times I have started things and events and activity regardless of who came. Because I always thought that, people who have come, we have to honor their time, So it's important that we honor and start things. If somebody is late, too bad. You don't know how to manage your time, it's your problem. Right. So I guess, that happens naturally because of who you are. So that was one of the things. And, in life, even if it's a chaotic situation, because I come from such a background, I have sort of developed that efficiency to manage a structure or a routine in whatever I do. So slowly it falls into a pattern, and which is a good thing. The other thing is learning to prioritize. Like every single day, from the beginning until now, I've always looked at what's the most important thing. Because there are so many things that we keep worrying about and sweating about, and we know that everything you cannot do and you can't be good at. So focusing on what you're good at, whatever your strength is, and try and take up jobs or tasks which you're best at, and focus with all your energy. And even in a day, I try and prioritize early in the morning. I think about, okay, these are the deliverables for today or for this week, and I try and do that. I guess, these two things. And early on, I had read about the 80-20 principle, which talks about whatever gives you joy, say the 20%, you need to focus on that, and the rest needs to be sort of trashed. And similarly, there's another rule that I read about, which I've tried to practice and I want to talk about, is 5 out of 25. So what it talks about is, write down a list of the 25 things that you want to do in this lifetime. And it's a big laundry list, right? 25 things. So the moment you write that down, you strike down the last 20 and just see the top 5. Now, when you see the top 5 is all that you're required to do. And these 20 have to be forgotten. Because if you don't forget, they keep nagging you, they keep bothering you. Absolutely. And you always live in that regret or sweat or tension that, hey, you know, I had to do that. I wish I could do that. I have to, you know, maybe. So it doesn't make sense. So it's best to do those top 5. And that actually gives you a lot of satisfaction of being you know, efficient and good. So these are some of the things that I have done. And every single day, regardless of what I do, I try and keep 1 hour absolutely without any agenda. Okay. So no matter how busy I am, I always keep that 1 hour. So I focus on a 23-hour cycle. Mm-hmm. That 1 hour is for exigencies. You know, anything will crop up, and truly so. Every day there's something or the other that comes in, but I don't get hassled because I factored this little 60 minutes for it. Right. So that has saved me a lot in a lot of situations. Correct. And yeah, so these are some of the things. Apart from that, I'll talk about these 2-3 things I think that help people become, you know, a more structured and more efficient person. Sure. So one I think is positive self-talk. You know, if you believe that your life is, you know, a breeze. If you tell your mind that your life is a breeze and you juggle very effectively, believe me, the subconscious starts to believe that. So that's something that one has to do every day. You know, you say that I have great work-life balance. And when you start believing that, you start feeling that it's happening. Yeah. So that's something that works well. The other is visualizing. You know, like what is it that I want ahead? So for many years, honestly, when I was in Bangalore, and I've told you that I came from such beautiful places like Ladakh and the sands of Rajasthan, and then, you know, tea gardens of West Bengal, suddenly you're in Bangalore.
Urban jungle, yeah.
Imagine, yeah, the concrete jungle. Yeah. So somewhere within me that, you know, idea of beauty was always being in nature. Living in a pollution-free environment. Not that I intended it to be this way, but in the lockdowns, I landed in Haridwar, where my mom is, and I'm actually next to the river Ganga, and with, you know, so much greenery and so much beauty around me. Right. So, you know, the power of visualization definitely works. Correct. It happened for me, and I'm so grateful that in a time like this, where, you know, you're trapped in homes, I see clean blue sky, and I can still go for my walks, and I can take my dog. So I think the universe sort of makes things happen if you truly want it. So, absolutely. And I'm being very, very genuine when I tell you about it, because it just happened. I landed here. And I think the other important thing which has worked for me from the army days, and now with Netflix and Marie Kondo, everybody knows about decluttering. I guess, you know, it was a practice with us. Because we moved every 18 months to 2 years, you know, on transfers across the country. Right. The idea was to always stay lean, only carry what makes sense. So I was always in the habit, and then I was a supply chain logistics guy. So you know, we, in our teaching, they always say that what you don't use for 5 years need not be there, it has to be discarded. In my personal life, I brought it down to 2. I said, if something I've not used for 2 years, it doesn't belong in my house. So I have just given away, discarded, you know, just left things out of my house when I moved from one place to the other. Right. Very, very consciously, to ensure that I have a very lean inventory in my own house as well. Correct. And then you have less to worry about. Yeah, yeah. And this is also the way that you explained about prioritizing, right? So, you know, 2 years when you're not using it, maybe you don't need it. So you don't need it. You're never going to wear that dress. You're never going to use that equipment because it's just lying and it's occupying space, and you'll worry about it. If it goes bad, you'll again, you know, look for repairs, and you'll probably never use it again. So it's important to declutter and keep only what is necessary. From a Vastu point of view also, apparently, though I'm not into all that, but it makes sense. What you don't
Right.
use, you don't have to have those things in the house.
Right.
So
Right.
these things have helped. Trust me, they have
Right.
really helped me stay
Hmm.
sane. And last I would say is a little bit of reflection time. So this 1 hour that I
Hmm.
keep for myself, I try and use it for self-reflection, to say how did my day go,
Hmm.
uh, what is it that I achieved, what is it that I didn't do too well, is there something I want to make up for, or just plain gratitude, praying
Correct.
and going to bed. So I use up that time in reflection and having that gratitude to say, okay, today was another beautiful day, or
Hmm.
what needs to be done differently. And that I guess has worked well. So these are on a philosophical level, these are the things that have worked for me.
Right.
And if you look at the little transactions, I guess
Hmm.
getting dressed for work hours, uh,
Hmm.
consciously making an effort to decide that okay, these are work hours and I'm going to focus on work,
Focus.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and separating home within the house environment. I think
Correct.
that has helped keep that little compartmentalization, because there are children,
Hmm.
they have their own classes, there's
Hmm.
lunch to be done, there are chores to be done, there are 100 things that are going on.
Correct.
Other thing I've done is removing all the notifications and all the those messages that keep popping on the phone,
Right.
which keep giving you negative news and which bothers you like crazy. So I have removed all the. So though these are very small, but actually they help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
can't emphasize enough that these are some of the things that one must do.
Right. Right. So, when this takes me to the next question. When we are talking about building, balancing between commitments, many of us have our own projects going on, which is like commitments for ourselves. Okay. So someone is painting, someone is vlogging, someone is, being on the way to become a photographer, and we have a full-time source through which we are, so our job commitment is towards the company, and our passion project is the commitment towards ourselves. So it's a very known struggle that, when you have to when you have to prioritize between the time that you give to the company versus the time that you give to yourself. It's a
Yeah.
very hard choice to make, right? Because then you don't know how to take out time for yourself because you have so much work to finish. And so many of us ask this question, many of the people ask this question to us also, how do you balance that? Like, where do you give importance and when do you do that? So can you just throw some light on that?
Yeah. Again, a very meaningful question, and I guess it's a lot of experimentation. I don't think anybody has cracked it. I
Correct.
guess we all have the struggle, and while work-life balance itself was a challenge in the older world,
Older world, yeah.
now in the newer world, it's even worse, because the work has entered homes. There
Yeah.
was a time when we used to say, I leave my files at my doorsteps and I come inside, and this is how I manage it. Remember?
Yeah, those fancy words.
Yeah,
When I enter the house, my work
space
life is
out.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now work has entered homes,
Yeah.
and schools have entered homes.
Mm.
So, and everything is sort of, merging every single day, every single hour. So there are tons of challenges. Plus, with the COVID factor, you are not allowed help at home. So
Yeah.
you have to do everything on your own. So all your chores, your children's education, your own health, fitness. Plus, I have a pet, so looking after the dog also. So there are so many other things that one is actually sort of trying to do besides everything else that you were doing already. So I think on a philosophic level, and because I'm a thinking person, I always bring in that one angle. But one has to think and do the things that you enjoy, even in terms of work. For example,
Mm.
if you are in a job that you don't enjoy, today I can say yes, a lot of people are probably stuck in those places where they cannot come out, and it's sad that today millions of people are losing jobs because of
Yeah.
the way the world is suddenly evolving, and new jobs are coming up. But then the older world is very, very quickly, like a tsunami, it just got wiped out. Many sectors don't exist anymore. So that issue is there, but you can also look at it as an opportunity. If your sector is not done well, you could probably look at this time to reskill yourself, do some digital courses, get into something, or the hobby that you never had time for. Make a career in that. Like I know so many of my friends who actually started, say, yoga or Zumba fitness trainings, and now they are full-time consultants.
Right.
Similarly, people have started businesses from home, e-commerce, handmade products. So stuff like that. So I guess, you need to do something that you enjoy, and then the boundaries between work and life blurs because you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, number one. But let's say it's possible, not possible, leave that aside. What we can do is how to maximize your time with whatever you have, right? So to spend more time with family, though they have their own sessions, I have my own, and we are all doing our thing. The rule that I have at home is that the meals, nobody will be using their screens. So it's a forced break for kids, for me, for everyone, to say that nobody will have screens while we have 3 meals in a day. Even if it's a 15-minute break, but at least we are forced to talk to each other. And apart from that, exercising separately, if I can't take out time, well, I have to manage the dog. I have to look after him also. So that's my bonding time. That's my exercise time. I do my runs with him. So that's how I manage. So 2 jobs again sorted, like, meals and family bonding time, dog and exercising time. So I'm clubbing stuff.
Correct.
My favorite is music and cleaning the house, because when you're doing your pocha, it's very hard to do that, or dusting. So music, you have lovely entertainment and you forget what you're doing. So I guess, to sort of club your entertainment with house cleaning. Practicing gratitude, like I said, before sleeping or waking up in the morning, that's something that I do.
Correct.
And weekends, then I try and keep 1 hour consciously on Saturday or Sunday, where I speak to some friends who I really love, and try to either write or learn something new, because now there's so much on internet. It's always nice to know something that you haven't learned earlier. Correct. So I try and keep that 1 hour in a week. It might be a very small thing. Correct. But I try and do that. I had, and I'll be honest, I started reading also, and I've not been able to pursue in the last 1 month. But earlier I did some reading as well. So it's possible, if you make that conscious effort, a lot of things are possible, and you sort of juggle and you mix the things. For chores, I have also allocated roles. Now we have turns to do dishes or, stuff like that. So that helps when you have load sharing in the house. That also helps. So these are some of the things that you do for training the family. It's good for them when they grow up. They will also be very happy to do these things independently. Their families will be happy. And plus, this is one great way of shedding your own load as well. So some of the things that I've been doing.
Superb. So Vandana, I want to ask you next question, like, can you give us like an example, like you worked in companies like Myntra and Wipro, so there must be a lot of projects where they needed to have various skills and the timelines were tough. So when we're talking about balancing your commitments and then actually getting the job done, like by the strategies that you applied, or the things that you mentioned, can you just give us like one example or a case study as it really worked, like from say thinking to execution, the entire plan worked because the way you balanced your work commitments? So can you just give us like an example of that?
Actually, there's so many, but I'm just trying to think of what would be the most appropriate one.
Right.
I think the favorite that I have is always about sort of, see, I'm a people person, right? I mean, I've always enjoyed being with folks. So let's say Myntra time. Now, I was working with workforce which was 90% blue collar, and 10% was from Premier B schools. You know, again the divide was pretty stark.
Correct.
And it was a beginning of e-commerce. The talent, the talent pool did not exist. We had to get people from the nearest industries, which seemed like the delivery companies. So we were hiring people from TTDC, Blue Darts, you know, DHL and TNT. So again, connecting the dots, though there was too much of randomness in the way I picked up my assignments. I was with the IT company, I was with the infrastructure company, I was with education retail, I was with a supply chain organization. But when I look back at the things that came my way, everything sort of fell in place. Like the initial people that we needed for supply chain logistics and warehousing in Myntra, a lot of those people came because I knew everybody in the TNT India organization, and TNT had a demerger. They were reducing people in the country and sort of winding up operations. So it was like lottery. We had so many people and known people and good people. And, you know, I worked on a lot of early strategies. And again, it was unprecedented. Those days, we didn't have any policies. We had to do everything from the scratch. And in roles like that, even a difference of 500 rupees makes a lot of difference. If another courier organization is giving you 500 rupees more, people leave. And when you're training them for customer centric roles and saying, okay, you are representing Myntra, you are, you know, taking look good philosophy to a customer's doorstep, it's very different from giving a parcel from, you know, a older company that they came from. So we spent so much of time training them. So it was criminal to lose them to competition or to somebody else. So we tried to do a lot on the people's side to ensure that the dignity, or, you know, we put them on our roles, and they had ESI, PF and all those benefits. So the boys first time saw medical benefits. Their families could go get themselves treated, and they were so grateful they wouldn't leave. I remember one of the management trainees from Amazon, because they were setting up operations in India those days. She actually reached out to ask what are the best practices, how are you ensuring, because these guys are not leaving here to get so I think that was very close to my heart, you know. Somebody calling up and saying people don't want to leave you guys, what are you doing so differently? I think I was very excited because for me the connection, the heart to heart mattered so much. And I used to spend a lot of time with the warehouse, with the delivery boys, with the you know, warehousing people, pickers, outhouse interactions, family get-togethers. So later, after 5-6 years also, I remember there were so many people who reached out and said, we still remember you as the HR head. Many people have come since then, but the work you did is still very memorable. So I think that's very exciting. And similarly, there are beautiful stories from all organizations, but that's because it's Bangalore, and that's something that I really loved. I think that comes to my mind when you
correct.
talk about that.
So effective retaining strategies is what actually worked by, you know, people, keeping people in the center, and then you
you look after your employees and they'll do everything. I guess, you know, it has to be very fair and from the heart, and people can see the difference when it is from the heart. It shows.
Right.
You get it back also in the same manner.
Correct. So now I want to ask for you, like, an advice if you have to give, like, the people who are just entering their professional journey, or, you know, have a lot of dreams and have a lot of vision to do a lot of interesting things. From the starting, if they have some habits which are really useful, so that, you know, they can fulfill all the commitments and without feeling the guilt that, you know, I didn't give enough time to this, or I should have paid more attention to this. So what are some habits that people can inculcate? Or, you know, it can be in forms of knowledge also, like some podcast or some, you know, so these kind of tools that people can use when they're entering into the professional journey, if you can just throw some light on that as well.
So I think I've already covered what worked best for me as a young person, and I will reiterate on that. One is your time discipline. Nothing can be as important as knowing to be punctual, being disciplined, and keeping your commitments. So that's something that should definitely become an integral part of who you are as a person. That helps you grow up and shape up very well and save you a lot of time and effectiveness, because otherwise, if you are a procrastinator, that becomes the major productivity flaw. And I guess, I mean, everybody procrastinates because there are things which you don't like and you definitely keep putting them on the back burner. But what I'd say is, even for those, you have to have a hard stop. You have to say, now this is going to be the day, date and time when it has to be done. And it will not be pushed beyond that. So that's very important. The other, like I said, is prioritization. We have tons of things to do, but every day, remembering what is important and doing those top 2 or 3 is just about everything. And while we all multitask, but I guess, the human strength is in doing something fully well if you're doing one thing. But if you're doing too many, it's no point being a perfectionist. You can't say, oh God, I didn't do this well. Oh God, that also I didn't do well. They will be in a certain manner only. So it's important to be fully focused and putting your best, but no point beating yourself down if something is not 100 out of 100. So accepting that because you're doing so much, there will be elements where you would have achieved a 90% and it's okay.
Right.
You don't, especially women have this problem because you want to do everything right. You want to be a perfect mom. You want to be a perfect at work. You want to do everything right.
Yeah.
There will be days when you can't clean up something in the house. It's okay. Nobody's going to judge you. It's all right. So you have to prioritize and say, what is it that I'm going to do and what's important for me. The last thing that I'll say, which is the most important and I've not touched so far, is learning to say no. Now that is one thing that I think most people struggle with. We end up taking things or doing things which we are not good at, or B, we are coerced or in a place where you have no choice. And when you do it, the satisfaction is not there. You always do it half-heartedly or not to the best of ability because you're not confident about it, and the result will be the same.
Correct.
So learning, and the faster you learn, the better it is. And that's something that I tell even my children at that age, that pick up things that you're good at, or if you can't do well, it's better to assertively say why you cannot do or why you are not the best person to do it, and probably give problem solving solutions. Someone else could do it, or if it can be done in a different way, or have it delegated. But don't try to do things that you can't, and learn to say, this is not my cup of tea, I'm sorry, thank you, but I'd rather let it pass.
Right. Absolutely. Audience, we are opening the questions. In case you have any questions, if you want to ask, please use the chat box and ask the questions. We have next 5 to 10 minutes to answer the questions.
So, Amita, thank you. No, there's a message from Amita saying, glad to attend your session. So thank you. I'm happy as well. I hope everybody found it interesting, meaningful.
Yes, very much. It was an amazing session. I want to just thank you. I'm Sonam, and it was so engaging. I think every minute of it. and I'm being very honest here. It's difficult to have an attention on an online session. You tend to deviate, but I heard every single word, and it was wonderful. I learned, and how much, if I can just maybe pick up 2 things from this, I would be so I think this whole time discipline was a fantastic tip. Very difficult to, I think, implement, but
but it's an important one.
Thank you, Ankita, for bringing Litton and Vandana. It was beautiful.
Thanks, Sonam. Thank you so much.
We have one question from Kajal. How was your journey from army to corporate? Oh, just talk about transition.
Oh, okay.
I think all of us are very curious about that, because this is not a transition you see on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So, like I was saying earlier, I think, that the biggest contrast that I can give you is I was somebody who knew the military ways. I could shoot, I could run, I could do everything that a good soldier does. But computers was not part of our training, so or part of our functioning those days. So for me, suddenly landing in an IT organization, it was interesting because I didn't know how to make PowerPoints, how to send emails on Microsoft Outlook, how to work on Excel sheets, and being part of a recruitment team. It was a nightmare. Plus, on the personal side, I didn't know how to drive in that traffic of Bangkok.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I could drive on highways. I've done long journeys from, say, Delhi to Jaipur, Bangalore to Hyderabad, or many journeys. But driving, clutch braking through your way and not hitting somebody was a nightmare. And I think I developed my first, the confidence that I can drive through happened not by choice, but due to, the situation, because my baby was small. My younger son was 2 years old and he was unwell. So, and there were no Ola Ubers those days. Where do you get taxis from? So I was forced to take the car out and I took him to a doctor. So then I said, okay, now I can drive, because I know how efficient I am in what. So on a personal level also, there was a lot of transition. Why it happened was because, like I said, the career in the army was coming to an end. Those days we didn't have a choice. Like now that the government has agreed, the women who join forces now are blessed, and it has taken a lot of us to sort of prove that point, to say you have to be fair about this and give equal opportunity to women.
Absolutely.
And now it has happened, so that's a wonderful thing. Had this opportunity existed, maybe even I would have stayed. And once in one of my motivational speaking sessions, somebody asked me if the commission had come that time, would you have stayed? I said, yes, I would have loved to be a major general by now, or a brigadier, why not? So that would have been lovely, but since that opportunity was not there, I wanted to do the next best thing, and which meant moving out, reskilling myself and doing something I'm good at.
Right.
So that's why I left. I was 31 when I quit army, and I did this executive program at IIM Lucknow. So again, after being somebody, Kargil war veteran, this, that, and then suddenly being a zero and starting a new career, new set. So you have to unlearn a lot. Right. You have to tell yourself that whatever I did was phenomenal, but it's my past. You have to wash it, clean it, and then start all over again. So I think that was a conscious factor that I decided. I said, whatever I knew, or, because everything was hukum, right? You say something and it gets done. And army works like that. Everybody knows their jobs. You don't have to repeat yourself twice. People know. I think I've been doing it the right way.
So I'm guessing there was a lot of unlearning also when you came from military to corporate. Completely. Because in corporate you tend to repeat yourself 100 times before getting a task done. So absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so follow-ups, they've never we didn't know what follow-ups were. You say something and it's done.
Interesting.
It was a huge culture shift. But I was loving the difference also. There were a lot of things which were new to me. Going to work in a jeans and a t-shirt was unimaginable, Never did something like that. I used to call my boss as Mr. So-and-so. I laugh at myself now after so many years. I was so used to courtesies and etiquette. Right. I used to speak like that. Then slowly I got down to first name basis, because that's how the world is. And
it was today.
A lot of things. And every day I have to tell myself, hey, this is how it is done here, and I have to learn. So it was a very, very conscious effort to sort of unlearn everything and adapt and learn the new ways. So,
right.
That's how it was.
So I think Sonam is also asking that when we're talking about army to corporate, any point of view on gender equality in the armed forces? Like, how do you look at it today? From someone who has worked in the military before.
I think I had the loveliest time with the forces. I guess I had, and I've never had, I was a sports person also. So from childhood, I used to play games like basketball. and typically with the boys, because not many girls in the school used to pursue games like that.
Right.
So I was always very comfortable. I never had that thing in my head that I'm a girl and somebody's a boy, or oh, I can't talk to him or he can't talk to me or anything like that. So being part of an organization like that didn't seem different at all. Well, yes, people were not used to seeing girls, so initially there was curiosity.
Right.
And it's natural. They wonder if you can shoot equally well. Do you know your job well? What kind of training do you come with? So you have to be on your guard and do everything right. But the moment they see that, and I was a marksman, I used to shoot very well. I was in fact, picked up from the academy to represent the army sports rifle, competitions in Mao, straight after the academy, along with 10 other girls. So, shooting was always my thing. I was very good at it. So at the shooting range, when people see that, oh, she's good. When they see that you can run well, you can do everything well, and in your work you are efficient, you are ready to do everything that a guy does. Nobody judges you. In fact, there's so much of respect. And I remember a lot of the senior JCOs, the senior supervisors, they used to come and tell me, because I used to look very young, though I was 22, I used to look like a 7th grader. So they used to always say that you look like a school kid and I would love my child to meet you. And they wanted their daughters to come and meet me because they always wanted them to become like me. And it's such an honor, when you somebody tells you that I want my child to become like you. What more do you want in life? So it's
absolutely.
So true.
So wonderful time. I guess I think I still cherish those days. Beautiful. And the rest of my family is still with the forces. And my younger sister, who's 5 years younger to me, by the time she reached that point, the Air Force had come out with the permanent commission. So she has it now. She's a wing commander. She's still serving, and she's putting in about 20 years now. And she's very happy. The work-life balance is perfect. The risk is there, but then it's there everywhere, and that's what separates us from others. So I think we all love it. So my sister, my brother, their spouses, everybody is with the forces. I think it's good. It's not a problem at all. The policies needed to change, and they have, so which is fine.
They have. Okay. So now you will go ahead and recommend more and more women to join armed forces. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. It's a great career.
Amazing. Okay, I think we will take last 1 to 2 questions. They've been sitting there for a while. So one is, I think, from Shivani. She's saying, ma'am, as you told us about the laundry list, so I'm keen to ask that actually sometimes it happens that we don't know much about every field to put ourselves forward. So how to find every platform that we could reach and then decide where we could fit actually and set it as a career. And we should be more focused to that. Okay, so while getting into the corporate, how do you decide that this particular career field is good for you?
So I think it is a tough one. I mean, you do need to find a method in the madness, like I said, right? I mean, you definitely have, say, a degree or a qualification that you've had, maybe commerce or science or whatever you've taken, and then there is an imagination of what you think you can do best. So, for example, because I was raised in an Air Force base, and I only saw fighter pilots and people like that, I always wished, though there were no women in uniform those days, only doctors and nurses, but being part of the combat forces was not there. But that wish was always there. And when that opened up, I knew that's something that I want to do. So no other options existed for me. I did everything for it and cracked it in the first go. So that's one way of doing something. When you follow it fully, give it your 200% and crack it. If you don't have that sort of clarity, look at the possible fits, or what is it that you are good at? What is your strength? If suppose you are good with your communication, right? Regardless of degree, you might have done humanities, you might have done science, but you're great with communication. Maybe you need to pursue something in content. Now, in a time like this, there is no bar, no limitation to what you can do. There are so many digital courses that one can do, and start freelancing, start writing, start doing something that excites you. So I'm just saying that, you can create a career out of anything now, and nothing is a taboo. In our times, you had to be either a doctor or an engineer. In our case, because we came from forces background, that was also a great career. If you are not fantastic in anything, then teaching was also a good option.
Right.
Teaching kar lo. But beyond that, nothing else existed. So there was a limitation. Now there is no limitation. You can pick what you're good at. And having said that, I think, and this is an important point which I make at every conversation I have, it doesn't matter where you start. Like I started in 96 with the army. I've had 3 careers by now. And people my age actually, and our fathers and all, unke zamane mein kya hota tha, people used to start with something, and in 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, they used to take one briefcase, they used to get one gift and one tea party, and then everybody used to clap and say, fantastic, you've done so much service and you're going. And they used to get all emotional about it. I've given so much. They were like family. It was a different emotion, but that time is gone.
Time is gone, yeah.
And, say 85% people that I know, my generation also, are sticking to their jobs. But now that introspection has happened, or with COVID, probably people are now looking at doing other things, and which is a good thing.
Correct.
For younger people, I say fail fast. Try everything possible. Because there are no liabilities. You don't have, EMIs to pay. You don't have to put children through school. Try anything and everything. It's okay. If you don't crack it, it's okay. You can do something else. You want to mix cocktails, by all means. Do that for some time.
Yes,
See if you're good at it, but be good at it. If you're not good at it, you better not do it.
Correct.
So I think that's one way of seeing where you are good. Identify your strengths. Figure it out. If you don't fit in, try something else and fail fast and learn fast. The moment you crack it and you say, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, that's the career you need to pursue.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. I think, unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I want to thank you, audience. Thank you so much for joining in today's session. I hope the topic was such that all of us could, take a weekend and mull over it and understand and self-reflect. I think that's very important. Vandana, thank you so much for taking out this time and having such a candid conversation with all your stories were so engrossing. In fact, I think it was around 4:45 is when I realized, okay, I have to ask people to start putting their questions also, because I was going on with my own questions. So thank you so much for taking out time and having a conversation with us.
Such a pleasure.
Any last words before we close in for today?
So I always say, now there is the internet lingo which says YOLO, you only live once. But my way of saying always was build an epitaph and not resume. You need to, be remembered for what you did, and that should define your whole journey and what you do. I guess the resume gets built on its own. When you enjoy something, you have fun doing it, the resume gets built. At least in my case, it happened on its own. I didn't make special efforts to do anything. It just happened because I loved everything I was doing at that point in time. Right. So that's very important. Live well, live fully, wholeheartedly, make the best of what you have.
Right. So, thank you so much, Vandana. Thank you so much, all. Hope this session was very insightful and informative to all of you as well. Have a good evening. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Vandana.
Bye bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye.